Douglas Whaley represents the history of gay Columbus and the history of Stonewall Columbus, and tonight we honor him and thank him for his vision, commitment, and stamina, and all of that he brought to Stonewall Columbus and to make Central Ohio the GLBT mecca that it is today. At this time, we ask Doug to come to the stage and we offer him an opportunity to say a few words. Douglas Whaley.
Thank you very much for this great honor. Rhonda Rivera was and is a good friend of mine. I brought her into what was then called Stonewall Union in early 1982 when it was very new. And then we all stood back and watched in wonder as Rhonda took over the organization and whipped it into the very effective force for social change that it is today. If I have any claim on this award, it is because I always did exactly what Rhonda told me to do. In June, when Stonewall asked me to do a presentation of the history of gay rights in Columbus, that was a tremendous spur for me to drag out my zillions of videotapes and other memorabilia and relive those heady early days. Val Thogmartin telling the press that the first march was not a protest, it was a celebration. Craig Covey spraying insect repellent at the God hates fags kind of people. Craig Huffman going on TV and thundering against John Glenn's very homophobic presidential campaign. Rhonda Rivera laying her heart on the lectern as Columbus City Council considered a job discrimination ordinance. The footprints of these early steps turn up today in the oddest ways. The reason that Stonewall's phone number is 299-7764 is because that was the phone number of Craig Covey, the first executive director. We used to sit on the floor in his tiny apartment on 8th Avenue, hand-addressing the mailing, covered in cat hair. Gays of my generation did not start with pride, but with its opposite, shame. Shaking off the suffocating cloak of shame was a tremendous accomplishment, but we replaced it with anger, not with pride, not at first. We gathered together angry people from all over the United States, and we all pushed at the society from many different directions. It never occurred to us there was any glory in what we were doing. We were fueled by our anger. This movement has come a very long way in a breathtakingly short period of time. Wonderfully, today's activists, and particularly the very young ones, are driven by a sense of entitlement, not anger. The American dream must include them. Society must play fair with its gay people. What could be more obvious? And as straights come to think this, too, by the hundreds, by the thousands, by the millions, like magic, it happens. The state of Georgia, that in 1986 prosecuted Michael Hardwick for having gay sex, a felony with a possibility of 20 years in prison, saw its Supreme Court 2 years ago declare the sodomy statute unconstitutional. The Supreme Court of Arkansas has done the same thing. And this year, the United States Supreme Court made it nationwide. Gays really are everywhere, on movies, in TV, meeting with the president, being appointed bishops. How is this possible? It fills me with awe, yes, and pride. And you have to know what a close call it all it was. In the early days, Stonewall almost failed like 50 times in the first 3 or 4 years. For those of us who survived those cat hair days, begging for stamps for our mailing, throwing a press party where not a single member of the press showed up, dealing with a mayor who openly called us homos, and a congressman whose district included both German Village and the campus, but who told the national media he had no homosexual constituents. For those of us who survived those days, the current Stonewall Columbus is like a miracle. I had a moment of epiphany in 2001. Stonewall celebrated its 20th anniversary by parading a lot of us old-timers through the streets as part of the march. And as I sat on my Cadillac, lump in throat, looking at the rainbow banners festooning the streets of Columbus, and contemplating Stonewall's brunch with the mayor the next day, it suddenly occurred to me that we had 20 years before. Nowadays there are other battles. AIDS, gays in the military and at the altar, transgender rights, etc. But we can declare victory in the public acceptance war. That is an amazing thing to say.